Right, today marks the third anniversary of the Supreme Court decision that put the infamous Roe v. Wade ruling into the dustbin of history. The decision in Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Clinic came after decades of efforts by pro-life advocates and is rightfully celebrated as the victory that it is. But many recognize that the fight for the unborn is not over. So what else needs to be done? Well, here to discuss this and more, U.S. Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma. He serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Finance Committee and the Select Committee on Intelligence. Senator Lankford, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
You bet, Tony. Always good to see you.
All right, the third anniversary of Dobbs. This is big. I mean, this is something we prayed for, worked for, advocated for many years. But I think in the 3 years since, we're realizing there's a lot of work that is left to be done, not just in policy. Yeah. There's policy that needs to be done, but also the heart change needs to take place in our country as well.
It is actually, and I try to remind people there's a difference between cultural change and legal changes. Legal changes actually move faster than cultural changes on it, but cultural changes are essential to actually communicate the value of every single child and to be able to pass that on generationally. And I compare this in some ways to our country almost 100 years ago, determining we're going to do prohibition. We're not going to allow the consumption or production of alcohol at all in the country. That constitutional amendment actually moved faster than any other constitutional amendment had ever been done, rapidly through all the states, but then was unwound later because behavior didn't change, the culture didn't change, the law changed on it. And so for us, we should take that to heart to remember we still have a lot of work to do on culture on this. So the legal fight continues, and we're winning that step by step. What we're losing in different states also shows we still got a lot of cultural work to do.
Now, the numbers are hard to come by because the reporting is voluntary. But according to Guttmacher, the former policy arm of Planned Parenthood, the number of abortions in the country has actually risen since the Dobbs decision. We're actually seeing more abortions performed in this country, even though we've got like 41 states that have laws to varying degrees that protect the unborn and their mothers. One of the issues behind it is the abortion pill, chemical abortions that are actually being sent into these pro-life states.
Yep, that is a driving force right now. The abortion industry, they're not going to go down quietly on it. They make too much money by ending human life, and this is their big goal. So we need to be able to be clear about what's happening and what they're doing to be able to promote abortion. As you mentioned, one of the key aspects is chemical abortions. They're mailing drugs into places and giving these to ladies and saying these are as safe as Tylenol, and you can just take these and it will end your pregnancy. And thousands of ladies are finding out this is not as safe as Tylenol. This has all kinds of side effects, and there's a lot of things that can happen, including dealing with fertility in the future after this time period, depending on blood type, ectopic pregnancies, all the side effects. We have quite a few women that are in the emergency room with really dramatic hemorrhaging. So this is not Tylenol that's actually going out, but it is a way for the abortion industry to dramatically advance the number of abortions.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later with Dr. Al Mohler, but this was set up and put in place, this universal accessibility to the abortion pills from the Biden administration during COVID. So that the restrictions that had been in place going all the way back to the Clinton administration in 2000, all of that was removed, including the in-person prescription, medical interaction with a doctor or a medical provider. That's been removed. And then the Comstock Act, which prohibited these things from being sent through the mail, that was, by a Department of Justice, an opinion, removed. But that's still in place, and that goes back to the Biden administration. So we're still operating under Biden-era policy.
Yep, it's an area that I've raised over and over again with HHS and with the leadership there, and now with EPA, as I'm raising that as well, and a whole different issue. But the Comstock Act is the clearest one. You can't mail these chemical drugs across state lines. You can't do that through the United States Postal Service or any other carrier without violating federal law. The Biden administration said, well, you can ignore that because that was done a long time ago. Laws are still the law, no matter what day that they were actually put into place on that. So that is something that could be turned around by this administration. Then, as you mentioned, multiple other issues. For instance, you don't have to go see a doctor on it. That was just done by fiat. That can be turned around as well to be able to say, no, if you have an ectopic pregnancy, taking this chemical abortion pill can actually take your life as well. There is a reason you have to be able to go to a physician to get these drugs. You've got to know what date, how long you've been pregnant. You've got to know if you have an ectopic pregnancy. Testing blood type matters on this because you could deal with future fertility based on your blood type if you actually take this drug. So there's a lot of things that do warrant stopping by to be able to see a physician on. We want to be able to get those things back in place.
Senator Lankford, I want to get a readout from you on the reconciliation bill, the one big beautiful bill. But before I do, I know you made reference to this. We're going to go deeper into this in the next segment with John Stenberger. But you actually have legislation that deals with the issue he's going to bring up, and that is the abortion chemicals getting into our water supply.
Right. Mifepristone is that abortion chemical that's out there that people take to actually end that pregnancy. But as gross as it sounds, much of our sewage water ends up being filtered and ends up being drinking water downstream. But that process doesn't take out everything. The PFAS, we talk about forever chemicals, that's still in the system. Medications often are still in the system, or other chemicals that are in our sewage go straight into our streams and creeks, and it ends up going downstream. We have no idea the environmental impacts of a mifepristone because the EPA has never studied that before. What happens when it gets recycled back into our drinking water? Does that affect future fertility? Can that cause miscarriages? We don't know because that's never been studied. So we are simply asking the question, we have a drug that is in our drinking water or heading into our lakes and streams. What environmental impacts does this have?
Wow. We're going to dig deeper into that, folks, in the next segment with John Stenberger. But, Senator, got just less than a minute left. The reconciliation bill, how's it looking?
Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do on it. We've got various pieces that have still got to get resolved. It's going to be drama all the way to the end. But the goal of this is we want to be able to prevent the largest tax increase in American history from starting in January. We're all on board with that. We've got to be able to reduce our spending. We have $2 trillion in overspending. We're all on board with that. We've got to be able to increase the spending that we're doing on the border to be able to make sure that what President Trump is doing on the border now stays that way for the future. We're all on board with that. There's some details we're still working out on it, but our focus is to be able to get this done by July the 4th, and we continue to be able to do the work.
Well, Senator, it wouldn't be Capitol Hill if there wasn't drama. So
we have it in spades.
Well, we'll be watching it very closely. Always great to see you, Senator. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tony.